I loved watching Master, full on entertainment, total paisa vasool. And most importantly, what matters to me the most, a well-made film and great storytelling. Hello guys, I'm Nona Prince and today we'll be talking about the latest Tamil release. It feels so good to say that again. Master, written and directed by Lokesh Kanagaraj, starring Thalapathy Vijay, Vijay Sethupathi and many more. Now before I say anything, you need to know some things. This was my first Thalapathy Vijay film. I have not seen any of his previous films, not even in Hindi dub or anything like that. So that may have impacted my judgment of this film. His other films like Mercil or Bigil, they never appealed me. And this was my second Lokesh Kanagaraj film after Keti. I was not a big fan of that one. You can check out my review here. The attempt was there, the ambition was there, but overall it didn't work for me. And honestly, I was not interested in this film at all. But I got interested and excited for this after the lockdown, which I have talked about before for the trailer reaction. Because we all are craving for that theatre experience. That too a good theatre experience. To watch an epic story unfold on the big screen. And this film delivers that. Now this was supposed to come last year but couldn't because of the pandemic and the lockdown. And I think because of that the expectations for this film rose tremendously. The pressure was not just on it being a Vijay film but also a Lokesh Kanagaraj film because he has established himself as a great filmmaker. And I was more attracted to this film because of him instead of Vijay. And all the reviews out there right now, it gives you that there's a mixed feeling about the film. Some people are really disappointed, some people loved it. So there's a mix of both. And it's understandable why that is. For me, what matters the most is great storytelling and filmmaking. That's on top for me. Everything else comes after that. But this film was also carrying the baggage of saving the theatre business. Release of this film was the first big step to sustain the cinemas. Because that's important too. We love theatres, we love cinema. And they are in dire need of help today. Now if you're someone who hasn't seen the film yet and still thinking should I go or not. Now if you're a fan, of course you'll go watch this film. Now if you're still on the edge, I would say if you like commercial cinema, if you like mass hero films, definitely go. It is worth your time. But I would say the health of you and your family is the first priority. If it's safe for you, then only go. I'll not recommend otherwise. I had some issues with the film which I'll talk about at the end. So let's get into the film. Now we'll have a detailed and in-depth discussion on this film this Saturday live at 8 PM. We'll be joined by several guests. So to get that, do subscribe and the bell icon to get notification whenever it comes out. And also if you find value in this video, do hit the like button because when you do that, YouTube promotes this video and more people can watch it. First thing is the narrative. It's long, it feels long while watching the film, but it never drags. It keeps you engaged throughout the 3 hours. And that is very important because it doesn't feel like it could have been told in 2 hours. This film is long because there's so many elements in the film that have to be shown. But definitely it's long and it demands your energy. I love the fact that everything that is set up in the film pays off by the end because it's very important to make a consistent film. Otherwise things will happen out of nowhere. The logic is sustained and the logic is not of the real world. Every film has its own logic, its own rules and regulations. You can also call it the style of the film. Now the film should never break their own logic and rules which they had established themselves because then the film becomes inconsistent. Because then everything just happens because it's convenient and that breaks the film. But here that doesn't happen. Now as I said, the film is long and it doesn't rush at all. It takes its time to set up everything, which is again very important to have a conclusive ending because it was set up so beautiful. Now the first 15 minutes are so good. They beautifully establish the villain of the film as Vijay Sethupathi and the title card and Thalapathy Vijay show after that, which is a very bold move. Ideally it shouldn't be, but in reality it is. So we have to applaud it. You know, all the tropes of a mass commercial film are there, but they are blended with the narrative very well. You know, the hero introduction scene, the fight scene, the dance. It's written into the narrative so seamlessly that it doesn't feel like it's out of place. It doesn't feel like it's just there for the sake of it. Coming to the action, oh my god, I just loved it. The best thing about the action was that there was effort from Vijay. You know, he was beating these goons down and I could see that he's doing it. You know, he's performing something. He's jumping, he's running around. He's putting that effort. It's not like he's just standing and the goons are running to him and just, you know, kicking, flying them. That's not it. He is putting in the work and the henchmen are taking those blows. And the best part is he's struggling too. He's getting hit back. He's getting tired while fighting because he is not hero Vijay. He's a character who's getting tired, who's not fit enough, you know, to fight all of these people. He's struggling with it. Now, one of the highlight moments in the film for me was when, you know, Charu is under attack and she calls JD and he cannot do anything. He's so far away from her and that's so good. Otherwise, we will see, oh, hero got to know and he'll reach anytime. As if there's no distance, he's Flash, he can just run and reach there. And the bigger twist was how that kid saved her. That was so brilliant, so unexpected. It subverted my expectations because this is so fresh for Indian cinema. We have never seen something like that. That a hero cannot do anything and a kid is helping out, is saving the day. And there are a lot of instances like this in the film where Lokesh Kanagaraj is challenging the norms, which I love. And we'll discuss more of these sequences in the live stream. One more thing is that the film is very Indian. Of course, it's Indian film, it's set up in India, everything. But what I'm trying to say is it's culturally Indian. The first dance sequence in the film, it was set up in a way that there was a cultural program in the college for the chief minister, and all these participants performed in that dance. The instruments, the folk dance, it's all Indian. Then of course the trucks and lorries, that is so Indian. We saw that in Kaithi too, and again we see them in this film. Then the use of that steel bucket, which is so Indian. It's not just South Indian, even in North India we use those buckets. Then the kabaddi game, using it so well in the narrative to spice up the things and tell a story through it. Then there's archery too. They could have used guns also, right? But they use archery, which was set up in the film previously. The next thing I want to talk about is the consequences of the actions. I talk about it all the time. Anything a character does should have consequences, should have repercussions, because that drives the stakes. And when stakes are high, the film becomes more engaging. The story becomes more interesting. There's a graph to the story. The hero wins, he loses, he hits setbacks. And our hero even cries. Our hero cries, guys. How often do we see that? And that shows how emotionally invested the character is in the story. And that makes us emotionally invested in the film. Because otherwise we always see, in the name of commercial film, anything happens. There's no logic to it at all. And we have to accept it because it's a commercial film, which is not done here at all. The film keeps challenging the characters, and every time they have to come up with a solution. They have to think hard. And every problem is different. So the solutions are different. And that's why the film keeps you engaged for so long. Now the film is shot and edited with a lot of energy. It just pumps you up while watching the film. There's this particular sequence in the film where Bhavani kills two of the Vijay students and he's out in the field crying, and the camera zooms out to show he's alone and the whole ground is empty, that he's left alone now. He has lost someone. Now let's talk about the characters and the actors. First, Vijay Sethupathi. Oh my god, what a performance as Bhavani. As I said before, the setup was so brilliant. There are layers to this character, there's depth to him. He's basically a product of this corrupt system, and to survive, he chose to be an oppressor instead of oppressed. His motivations are very clear. He wants power. He doesn't want to feel powerless as he felt when he was young. He behaves as he's very kind-hearted. He's soft-spoken, but he has no sympathy for anyone. Everything has to happen his way. And I loved his dialogues. They were so meta, they were so funny. And Lokesh Kanagaraj used his character to call out the tropes of mass commercial films. Vijay Sethupathi brought his own style to it, but I'm sure most of it was in the writing. In the beginning, they very well set up that how strong his punch is. He has trained for so long. He had developed that power in his punch. That was his superpower, you can call. And later in the climax, it pays off because JD is dodging his punches. He knows how powerful he is with the punch. And he tries to target his arms, injure him, break his arms, because he knows how powerful he is with them. There's this brutal scene where Vijay Sethupathi gets rid of those two kids. And just before that biryani and leg piece scene. So hilarious, but still such a daunting scene. And after that scene, there was no coming back. There was no redemption after that for that character. And that's bold. It makes the villain vicious and more dangerous because there are no limits to him. He'll get rid of everyone who stands in his way. And that makes him a big competition for a hero. They are equal forces which will collide now. Now talking about Thalapathy Vijay, my first film of him, and I have to say, he has this style to him, man. What a charm. The best thing about his performance was he was playing a character and not a hero. And it was like that throughout the film, except sometimes, which I'll talk later. He's a drunkard, always wasted after 6 p.m. and those things come into his body language. He doesn't wear a belt, he's always pulling up his pants. If he's not hearing to the music, he wants his shade so he can sleep. There are so many attributes to him that show that he's aimless, He doesn't have any dreams or passion for something. He's just living his life. That's it. There's no purpose to it. And that's very well established in the first half. And he's a passive character until he's called to action. He doesn't want to do anything. He's just laid back until something comes up and he has to go and do something. As I said before, he gets beaten up in the fight sequences. He falls, he trips, he's struggling. Basically, he's not perfect. He's a human at the end of the day, and that makes it more relatable. I love the fact that he was, telling his backstories to different people using different films. That worked so well for the film and it was so hilarious. And he also goes through a character arc. In the beginning, he's unwilling to help out. He doesn't care. It doesn't matter to him. He's at this place for those 3 months and he'll just get out of it. He doesn't want to be a hero. But when tragedy strikes, it's traumatic for him and it hits hard. And that makes him change himself and dedicate his life to a greater good. To finally have a purpose and aim in life. But that's a very normal character arc, right? That's in most films, right? They could have had him like that from the beginning because no one would care, right? He is the hero, he is Vijay, right? But they did that to tell a good story, to show that journey, from not being a hero to becoming a hero. This should be in every film by default, right? But it's not, and that's why I'm appreciating it. And by the end, he gives it all. He lost people who are dear to him. He took a toll for this great cause. He lost people through this journey, It was not just a walk in the park for him. Again, the consequences of the actions. And he faces consequences even after killing Bhavani. Now, before we get into the issues of the film, I'm going to talk about something. See, it's a mass commercial hero film at the end of the day, and it carries some baggage with it, which I wish wasn't the case, but in reality it is, and hopefully slowly it will go away. I wish we soon see the day where only the story and the filmmaking matters and not who the hero is. And I'm happy to see Lokesh Kanagaraj is on that path. Now, to watch this film, you have to understand the style of it first, because if you cannot, you'll not like this film at all. This is not for you. You cannot ask a question like, how can Vijay fight? What is his formal training? We know Vijay Sethupathi can fight, he was in the jail. But how come this professor can fight all the goons by himself? That's a dumb question to ask for a film like this. I wish that wasn't the case, but the fact is, you have to accept it. And if you cannot, then don't watch these films. These are not for you. It's like watching Iron Man and debating how can he fly, how is he breathing, how when he's landing he's not dying because of the pressure and force. These are dumb questions to ask while you're watching Iron Man. Same thing applies for this. Now, the director said in the interview that this is 70% of Vijay film and 30% his film. And to make that 70% of a Vijay film, you have to add some things, and those are the issues for me in the film. Do watch Moving Images video on Vijay, that why is Vijay the last superstar. He made a great video on that. Do watch it. Vijay has this image of a hero in his fans' heart, and the film has to live up to it. That's why there are these preachy dialogues, which I totally don't like. I'm not a fan of it. He has to give moral lessons, what is right and what is wrong. All that is a part of a Vijay film. But I liked at one place it was done very cleverly, and it was meta too. Charulata asked JD, why you started drinking, what is your story behind it? And Vijay's response was, I cannot tell you because someone else will hear this story and will find an excuse to start drinking. And that was a really meta thing, talking to the audience directly. But later in the film, we get to know his backstory, but they don't pay that much attention to it. Now, the second issue is the female lead, Charulata, played by Malavika Mohanan. She was just there in the film. No arc, just a single tone character. Basically a cliche love interest, which is again a trope of this genre. And I like the fact that they didn't spend much time on it. It was just brief and done. Now, she was organically a part of the narrative throughout the film, but that police station scene where she blames JD for the death of the two kids, that was not convincing at all, because it doesn't make sense. First of all, he never wanted to come here. You forged his signature and made him come here. He doesn't know what the hell is happening here. You have the expectation that he'll improve everything without even telling him anything, and then you're blaming him for something which he had no control over. Doesn't make any sense. I can understand the crying mother blaming him, I can really understand that. But she doing that, she basically betrayed him in a way. That didn't make sense to me at all. For JD, it was like something bad happened under his watch and he was feeling that guilt, and that the letter that he didn't read because he was drunk, so that guilt works there. But her blaming him doesn't make sense at all. Now, JD's speech just before the climax to those boys was not convincing at all. He did make some really good points, but I don't think those boys were smart enough to understand that, because if they were smart enough, they would know that themselves. Talking about that it's all part of politics, that is again for the audience. There are good points made, but not convincing. But his speech with Das was more convincing. That dance sequence in the prison, the Kutti story, that was done so well. You could literally see people in the back, looking at them dancing and thinking what is happening, It was so organically blended in, right? Because these people are doing something, they're dancing, and they're just looking, what is happening here? This is prison, right? That's why it feels authentic. As I talked about how good the action and dance was, but I think they just stretched it too long. It just started to drag, because when good things are shown in short period of time, it has more impact. But if you just stretch it and drag it, it starts to become boring and repetitive. You start to lose attention. And each sequence, each action scene and dance sequences, they didn't stop. It was just keep going and going, and I was like, okay, I really enjoyed it, but just cut it here, right? End it. It was great. Don't stretch it, don't make it boring. And again, I think that is part of fan service, because fans want longer songs, longer action sequences. It is part of that, but you can cut those down. In the climax, archery is very well used. That was great, really like that. But again, it was just dragged for so long. Why do you want 40 lorries? Just have 5 or 6, right? That's enough. Why 40? Again, it becomes repetitive. There's one truck going here, one truck going here, one truck going here. You start to lose interest. Now, Vanithi, played by Andrea, she was a pro, but then JD takes over and he is getting perfect shots. Okay, you have to accept it. And again, that same sequence is repeated. Why? Now you're counting, oh, this is lorry number 10, 11, 12, 13. Everything is happening, and it all just keeps going for 5 to 6 minutes. The editing became so fast, the sounds of trucks crashing, it just gave me a headache. I love the sequence when the first time JD and Bhavani come together. That was so well done, so entertaining, so unique, so fresh. Never seen something like that. But I felt the climax action scene was underwhelming, because that was Vijay Sethupathi character straight, right? That was his speciality, and I wanted more banter between them. The fighting was okay, but I wish there was more dialogue bazi. See, I never said that this film is perfect, it's amazing, send it to Oscars. No, I know it's not. It has its issues. But as a whole, it works. When I watched it in the theater, I enjoyed my time watching it. And that's what matters. After Kethi, I think Lokesh Kanagaraj has upped his game. And if this was his 30%, I cannot wait to watch his 100%. And hopefully he gets to do that in Vikram with Kamal Hassan. So guys, that was the review. Do join us for the live stream. We'll be going in depth talking about various scenes in the film. If you enjoyed this video, do hit the like button, share this video, let me know in the comments your thoughts. If you haven't subscribed yet, check out the videos if you like them too. Do consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.